The academy is already burning when Taylor reaches the place he should protect. A third-rate villain wakes inside a catastrophe he was never meant to survive. Ed sees the ruined future and recognizes the role waiting for him. He protects two women while the story around him turns violent. The blonde opponent refuses to yield, and the room becomes a narrow battlefield. Taylor carries a sword, but Ed carries the knowledge of every doomed route. One mistake leaves Ed facing an enemy whose strength makes escape impossible. The target is not victory, but the people hidden behind the chaos. A dark spell turns the burning academy into a trap with no safe exit. Ed makes one cold decision: survive the ending written for him. A demon's red eyes stare through the darkness, and the words above it sound less like narration than a warning from the future. It descends over an academy, turning the entire school into a battlefield before anyone has time to pretend this is a normal day. A brilliant beam crashes down through the clouds and strikes the academy, revealing how completely the attack has already swallowed the campus. The swordsman answers by launching himself into the air with a sword, looking less like a student than the last defense available. The demon catches his reflection in its glowing eye, proving that this is not a distant threat but a fight between two determined opponents. The swordsman brings the blade down, and the first exchange lands with enough force to make the monster roar across the ruined grounds. He keeps attacking through the noise, because fighting monsters has somehow become part of the life he never expected to live. One clean strike sparks against the demon's body, showing that Taylor is skilled enough to hurt it, but nowhere near safe yet. The creature throws its head back and roars again, gathering enough dark pressure to make the next attack feel inevitable. The swordsman barely escapes a crushing blow, leaping away with his sword raised before the demon can turn the floor into a grave. For someone surrounded by that much danger, his expression is strangely calm, as if he is already measuring what the battle will cost. That calculation pays off when Taylor stands over the defeated demon, with several young women gathered around him in the wreckage. The battlefield fades behind him, and the small smile on his face makes the victory feel warmer than the destruction surrounding it. He never expected to become friends with these girls, which is exactly why the peaceful memory feels dangerous once the story moves forward. Rain falls over the academy, cutting away from that old memory and dropping us into a present where the ruins are still burning. A sword wrapped in fire smashes through a window, announcing that the current crisis has no interest in waiting for anyone to recover. Inside, an academy banner burns while the flames spread through the halls and turn the familiar school into a trap. The swordsman stands between two girls and the attacker, demanding to know why anyone would go this far just to stop them. The answer comes from a bloodied blonde man holding a knife, blocking the way with the confidence of someone who expects Taylor to lose. The swordsman is the protagonist, but that does not make the fire, the enemy, or the women behind him any less real. His name is Taylor McLaurin, the swordsman whose route is supposed to carry the story forward from this point. Then Ed Roth Taylor steps into the fire, turning a name that once sounded important into a challenge thrown directly at Taylor. The blonde opponent refuses to back down, and the room becomes a narrow space where every answer must be paid for in blood. Magic symbols gather around the blonde man's hand as he dismisses Ed as nothing more than a third-rate villain. Their weapons collide, throwing light through the burning hall and proving that Ed has chosen a fight he cannot win cleanly. The fire intensifies around them, but Ed stays committed because hesitation would only give the protagonist another advantage. His face hardens under the orange glow, and the calm determination says he is no longer trying to look respectable. An eye widens in shock, marking the instant when the confrontation stops being a simple clash and becomes a desperate change of plans. He ends up beneath a grand staircase surrounded by flames, small enough to look helpless against the scale of the disaster. He drops to one knee with a bow in hand, exhausted but still searching for the one move that can keep him alive. A sword catches the firelight nearby, turning the next attack into a promise that someone is about to close the distance. He was originally supposed to be a worthless nobody, a background character who barely mattered before the real story moved on without him. Now he aims a bow while Taylor leaps toward him, and the character meant to disappear is making the ugly decisions. He draws through the smoke, knowing that a clean heroic answer is no longer available to him. The target is not the strongest fighter, but two women huddled behind the chaos. The choice is impossible to misunderstand. The arrow points toward them, and Ed accepts that third-rate characters survive through methods the protagonist would never touch. When the shot lands, the battle crosses a line that cannot be erased by excuses or a better reputation. He closes the gap with a knife and drives it into Taylor, proving that his survival plan is built around exploiting every opening. He does not need anyone's understanding, because the people who judge him will not be the ones paying for his death. The swordsman and Ed lock together, one preserving the heroic route while the other escapes the fate written for him. Red chains erupt from a magic circle and trap a woman, giving Ed a weapon that turns the battlefield into leverage. A blue barrier crashes against the dark spell, turning the clash into a contest between powers Ed cannot control. Through the flames, two women walk forward with impossible composure, suggesting they are more dangerous than he expected. A witch's purple eyes ignite beneath her hat as lightning coils around her, adding another threat beyond his level. Above the burning city, a dragon-like creature rises with enough power to make every earlier exchange look like the beginning of the disaster. His bloodied face holds one cold decision as lightning strikes the castle. He will reach this story's end alive, and survive. The chandelier belongs to a world where noble families decide futures before anyone speaks. Inside that room, Ed Roth-Taylor sits like a king who already owns Sylvania Academy. That illusion ends when crimes threaten to erase him from his family's register. He insulted Princess Phenia, interfered with the entrance exam, and disgraced the Roth-Taylor name. Then the punishment becomes physical. Ed is left outside with every belonging he still owns. Students whisper that he was disowned, emptied his dorm, and will not return next semester. He sits alone with luggage while the academy decides this filthy noble got what he deserved. The worst part is that the arrogant Ed everyone hates is not the person behind those tears. Because Ed has just realized something impossible. He entered a game. That game is The Failed Swordsman of Sylvania, an academy story he played countless times. Usually, possession gives you a genius, rich heir, or hunter strong enough to break rules. He gets none of that. He wakes up as the third-rate villain kicked out at the beginning. He protests that he lived simply, but the students only mock him harder. Once the shock settles, Ed checks the face and body that now belong to him. The stat window lists Stamina 3, Intellect 4, Talent 7, Willpower 7, and Luck 6. Those numbers explain why the original Ed was only a disposable villain in the early scenarios. He struggles to remember what happens later, then the answer returns with horrifying clarity. The ending credits show Ed begging in a corner like a starving vagrant. He has no clue why he was chosen, and there is no one around to explain it. He can waste time on answers, or make a route that does not end on the street. So Ed decides he will make it, however ugly the process becomes. Sylvania Academy is not simply a school. Its grounds cover the Arkan Mountains. For now, he settles in the undeveloped forest northeast of campus, where nobody is eager to visit. Escaping the students means walking half a day with all his belongings before stopping. Next semester's tuition will be enormous, and his current payment cannot carry him that far. His family disowned him, but the academy has not expelled him, leaving one path open. That scale gives Ed one advantage. He can remain a student without living inside the dorms. With the dorms closed to him and his reputation blocking ordinary work, the woods become his only option. Graduating from Sylvania guarantees a secure life, so Ed's objective is simple: stay enrolled. A scholarship is the obvious solution, but with those stats, Ed would be lucky not to fail every class. Even a farmer NPC had better stamina, a terrible sign for surviving a fantasy world. His suitcase holds flashy clothes, a ceremonial dagger, and an ornamental cup, but no useful bonuses. He sets tuition aside and focuses on what can kill him tonight: food, clothing, and shelter. At least a stream runs nearby, and 10 days remain before school starts, giving Ed preparation time. He stretches and decides to become suitable for academy life before that deadline arrives. Windblade cuts through the first trees, proving Ed can use magic even if the spell leaves him panting. The success fades when 15 trunks nearly kill him and make his hunger worse. Magic consumes too much energy, leaving his stomach loud enough to argue with every plan. His grandfather once said that when food disappears, tree bark is technically available. He lights a fire in the ornamental cup and declares that anything edible is worth trying. Cooked bark almost looks like chicken breast if he refuses to examine it too closely. He opens his mouth, takes the bite, and immediately learns that desperation is not the same as seasoning. For a moment, Ed forces down the taste with a smile, pretending this is a respectable meal. The next second, the bark comes back up, along with whatever confidence he had left. By the third day, starvation convinces him that wood belongs in a shelter, not his stomach. The new plan begins with a frame, because another cold night needs a roof. 4 support beams prove difficult when Ed has only 2 hands and no construction experience. The frame collapses directly onto him, turning his first attempt at housing into another physical defeat. He keeps working through the pain, because the forest offers no bed, no blanket, and no sympathy. His hands bind the wooden supports while his weak body continues to shake. At last, the shelter's frame stands, although Ed is too tired to pretend the job is finished. He spreads his clothes across the floor as a makeshift bed because there is no better choice. When the leaf-covered shelter finally stands, he can barely sit upright long enough to appreciate it. That is when a system notification confirms the basic wood shelter and raises his crafting proficiency. The details reveal a novice craftsman with handiness 4, design 1, and gathering ability 1. The crafting system is active, meaning survival can produce progress instead of only pain. For a noble who never used his hands, handiness 4 is strangely better than his magical talent. His stomach growls again, turning that accidental talent into the only skill that matters right now. Using the ceremonial dagger, tree branches, fabric, and a small nail, Ed crafts a crude harpoon. 2 days without food leave him raising it like a soldier preparing for war. He strikes the stream again and again, moving only because desperation refuses to let his body stop. At last, a fish hangs from the line, and Ed stares at it like he has found a treasure chest. He lights another fire with an ingredient that deserves to become dinner. The fish sizzles with 1 week left before school, giving Ed a chance to hold out. He eats slowly and promises himself that surviving until the semester starts will be enough. Then a sudden presence makes him look up, and the word that leaves his mouth is not a greeting. He realizes he was so busy surviving that he forgot the main characters kept moving. A young woman stands before the camp, making the survival plan much less private. The memory of guards surrounding a kneeling man returns, along with the demand that he show remorse. The princess stands with her arms crossed, coldly ordering the offender to disappear from the academy. Now she asks why he still has not left, reminding him that she kicked him out herself. The original Ed Roth-Taylor uses noble status to harass the protagonist's friend. His revenge grows when he interferes with the protagonist's entrance exam. The scheme collapses because a mysterious girl catches him while hiding her own identity. That girl is Fionia Elias Clowell, the third princess of the Clowell Empire. The princess activates insight, exposing lies and conspiracies around her target. His punishment is immediate. He is chased out of the dorms with his belongings. The academy hates Ed, but the person he should avoid most is standing before him. He insists that he remains a student, even though Fionia made sure he no longer has a room. The princess cuts the conversation short. Patience is not a privilege she will give him. She orders him to leave and threatens to request his expulsion from the academic department. Her list of crimes continues while Ed watches his food burn. After 3 days of hunger, the ruined meal feels like a genuine crisis. He admits that Fionia can end his academy route completely. He asks why a princess is alone when royalty usually travels with armed escorts. The princess warns him not to mistake missing escorts for weakness. He immediately denies that threat, trying to pull the conversation back from the edge. He bows politely and claims that he only wants to thank the princess. Insight activates again, and Fionia openly questions whether even that claim is honest. The result shocks her. There are no lies in Ed Roth-Taylor's words this time. That reaction opens the door to the Roth-Taylor family's far worse reputation. The family exploits citizens and experiments on humans for eternal life. In the original future, its members are imprisoned or executed when the family collapses. Disownment separates Ed from that fate, leaving him cold, hungry, and alive. Survival is miserable, but better than dying before he builds a new route. He decides to use authentic information, because lies will trigger insight again. If she rejects him, expulsion will not be a setback. It will be game over. He studies the timeline instead of defending his old personality. A week before school, the class placement test is underway. Her simple clothes and missing escorts tell Ed she is taking the test in disguise. The princess assumes Ed is flattering her when he predicts she wants the best class. The quest confirms Glast's exam. Hidden magic beads are the real objective. She nearly asks for his expulsion, but his information keeps her listening. He takes the risk and tells her she will never enter Class A. He offers his own expulsion if that prediction turns out to be a lie. The route he describes leads to a lake in the southeast of the forest. Beyond it sits a small grassy island that most students would overlook. At the island's center stands Marilda's guardian tree, hiding the bead Ed remembers. The bead glows inside the tree exactly where his memory promised. The princess holds the bead, understanding that Ed gave her a real advantage. 3 days earlier, Ed was a liar and charlatan who barely hid his desperation. The Ed standing here is calmer, sharper, and harder for her to recognize. The princess remains beneath the tree, weighing the information instead of accepting a simple gift. When the test ends, the scene returns to Sylvania Academy. Professor Glast orders the students to present their collected beads. Glast announces that everyone begins in Class F and must understand the examiner's intent. The test was never about any bead. The important ones lacked magical power. Only 3 students found that type, determining the path toward Class A. The final bead came from Marilda's guardian tree, carrying unusually high magical power. Glast identifies Fionia as its finder and declares she will stand at the top. Back in the forest, Ed is too weak to lift a spear after spending days surviving on almost nothing. He studies the crude fishing rod he assembled from branches, thread, fabric, and a small nail. She has seen through flattery and sophistry since childhood, sharpening that instinct into her innate skill. He had no choice but to give her authentic information, yet that honesty creates a larger danger. Fionia's future title, the Princess of Love, will come from the path she chooses rather than any statistic. If she reaches Class A through Ed's intervention, the early scenario will begin moving away from its original route. The future around her already looks cracked, as if one altered choice has weakened the structure of the entire story. If the original scenario collapses, Ed's remembered information may become useless before it can save him. Her insight will reveal the truth, and the bead proves that Ed did not lie about its location. The princess hesitates because a perfect result without personal effort would not prove anything about her. Still, Fionia grips the golden bead and decides that this is not a present she earned herself. The future title, Princess of Love, is not a skill or statistic, it is a reward for walking the righteous path. He remembers the bait he threw at her. She would never enter Class A, and his expulsion would pay for the lie. She punches a wall, determined to succeed and rub the result in Ed's face. But Ed did not lie. Fionia fails to enter Class A, changing the route without giving him the victory he wanted. Her eyes settle on Ed, and she vows to keep watching him from this moment forward. The academy rises beyond the trees, reminding Ed that survival in the forest still has to lead back to school. He runs through the woods, breathing hard, because arriving on time has become part of his daily training. He reaches the academy, exhausted but still standing, which is already more than the original villain managed. The crude fishing rod catches a fish, turning misery into a small victory. Inside the hall, the opening ceremony begins with speeches and food. Students welcome Ed by whispering about how he dared to return after being disowned. He ignores them and treats the meal as a reward for surviving the forest and returning alive. He eats slowly, while the students notice that his manners do not match the old Ed they remember. Annis watches and admits that Ed feels like a different person now. That uneasy thought stays with her after the conversation ends, because she wants the academy to remain unchanged. First day begins clear, but Ed knows the academy can ruin him by lunch. Students gather as the academic society celebrates its progress. His first destination is the dean's office, a terrible place to visit on day one. He stands exhausted, realizing he was almost expelled before classes began. The princess spoke to the dean, yet his smile suggests she did not deliver the worst report. He exhales in relief, then decides every action must stay close to the original storyline. The combat details give him a modest start. Novice fighter, bow specialty, proficiency 1. That is enough to combine archery with magic and hunt despite his low stats. A rabbit becomes his first target, giving the survival plan a practical test. The arrow lands, proving a bow can already do more for Ed than an expensive spell. Better life skills could produce arrows capable of carrying magic, but Ed still watches the trees carefully. The plan lasts until Ed notices someone watching him from a tree. The watcher is a pink-haired student named Janica Faylover. She is a second-year genius spirit sorcerer who treats the forest like her playground. She calls Ed amusing, then appears beside him too quickly for his instincts to follow. Then she introduces herself as if they are already friends, which makes Ed wonder how she knows his name. She explains that Marilda, the forest's high-ranking spirit, watches every visitor. The spirit's territory is not private enough for Ed to hide his cut trees. He admits killing creatures and chopping trees, expecting a complaint from the forest's master. She only laughs and says Marilda does not care about such a small part of nature's cycle. Even the giant wild wolf has a tender side, which is not the reassurance Ed expected. Their exchange turns awkward while Janica stays cheerful, and Ed calculates escape routes. She laughs, then offers to show him something interesting. A glow appears in her hands as Janica offers the spirit she contracted yesterday. He considers befriending her, knowing one friendly sentence could change his route. Unfortunately, he cannot see spirits, so he admits that he has no idea what she means. She stares at him in shock, because a spirit sorcerer does not expect someone to miss what is beside her. He confirms the limitation and leaves to find food. He knows only the original storyline can preserve his informational advantage, so every unnecessary interaction is dangerous. He walks away, determined to keep her at a safe distance. She watches him leave, shifting from amusement to curiosity. She tells Marilda that Ed's behavior is unexpected, and that his inability to see spirits makes no sense. To Janica, that contradiction makes him fascinating rather than suspicious enough to ignore. The glowing spirit reaches toward her, and Marilda finally becomes visible as an ethereal, wolf-like presence. She wonders who Ed really is, when even a forest spirit cannot fit him into the expected rules. She complains that her kindness earned nothing longer than a brief yes, but she still expects another meeting. His shelter is far from the student area, making the daily commute a problem. He leaves before dawn and runs at full speed, accidentally increasing his physical stats just by getting to class. Once inside, he studies on a stone slab and borrows library books because a scholarship requires more than survival tricks. On the way home, he washes his clothes in the stream and hopes they will dry before morning. Back at camp, he checks firewood, water, and jerky, then accepts 4 hours of sleep. The exhaustion is bad, but Janica following him feels genuinely troubling. He turns on her near the shelter and demands to know how long she plans to keep following him. She is shocked that he noticed, while Ed considers it stranger that she thought he would not. He reminds her that he is Ed Roth Taylor, the Academy's worst hooligan, and asks why she keeps hanging around. She smiles, and answers that she does not know him yet, which catches Ed completely off guard. He remembers that Janica looks naive, but is actually independent-minded and difficult to push away. She matters too much to the plot for Ed to approach safely. The problem is that the future turns her into the final boss of Act 1, so Ed cannot answer her with a friendly smile. Still, destiny has placed them together, and Ed finally decides to ask her for a favor. She reacts with immediate excitement, as if being useful to Ed is the best surprise she has received all week. He points at his battered clothes and admits that his family disowned him, leaving him in a desperate position. Then he asks her for money, and Janika's expression freezes as if the request has physically changed her face. He promises to pay her back and insists that borrowing is what friends are supposed to do. She is a top student who depends on scholarships, so Ed's casual request strikes directly at her only safety net. Her brilliance does not make her wealthy. Without that scholarship, she may not even continue at the academy. They stand beside the shelter in an awkward silence that neither of them can repair. In his mind, Janica Failover is effectively cut out, another person pushed away by the villain he keeps pretending to be. 3 days later, the sky is calm, but Ed's plan to remain uninvolved has not become any easier. He returns to the woods determined not to become entangled with important characters again. Keeping the original story intact is still his safest strategy, even if the strategy keeps failing. He moves branches around the shelter, trying to make routine work feel more important than the characters nearby. The newcomer feels even more important than Janica, and that difference makes Ed's stomach drop. The mage is the rare genius praised by classmates and professors, and the strongest character in the game. She wakes from the forest floor annoyed by the noise Ed has been making. He cannot understand why someone this powerful is sleeping in a mountain valley beside his shelter. She dismisses his confusion and points toward a wolf as large as a house. The creature is a spectral wolf, speaking directly to Ed. Its glowing form expands through the trees until even Lucy has to acknowledge how strange the conversation is. The wolf gives Ed a cryptic promise about something he must do someday. Marilda ends the ambiguity by ordering him to save Janica at all costs. She has been at Ed's camp for only 2 days, yet he is already carrying an axe and rope like this was his plan. That illusion of a quiet life ends when the system announces joint combat training. The academy arena fills with cheering students while 2 fighters prepare to test themselves in public. The exercise is mock one-on-one combat, using fake weapons so the training can hurt without becoming immediately lethal. The important students are all present: Princess Phenia, Lortel, Janica, Lucy, Clebius, and the protagonist Ed keeps avoiding. The swordsman stands ready as the failing swordsman, surrounded by an aura that makes the title feel temporary. He wonders if Taylor's match is next, even though he already believes he knows every result. The early winners are supposed to be first-year students, with Taylor carrying the route Ed remembers. She runs toward Ed with the same cheerful energy she had before asking for money became awkward. Compared with Lucy's cat-like distance, Janica's dog-like friendliness makes her impossible to ignore. She asks whether Ed is curious about the match list, while he insists he is not interested. Then Ed realizes the list includes his own name, meaning he has to fight as well. In the original route, Ed Roth Taylor had already been expelled by this point, so his opponent is impossible to predict. The swordsman steps into the arena and promises to perform to the best of his ability. He decides that his opponent can wait. Right now, Taylor is the only person he needs to watch. He has played Taylor's life from outside the screen, repeating routes that ended in misery, failure, or unforgettable victories. Every route was difficult, and Ed still finds himself cheering for Taylor despite choosing to protect his own life. The announcement calls for Lucy Merrill, but nobody can find the top student. He looks around in disbelief, because even a genius can apparently disappear when a duel is scheduled. The backup podium reveals Lucy asleep, forcing the academy to wake the strongest first year before she misses her match. She is sent into the arena against Taylor McClure, the first year who was born to become a swordsman. The swordsman has never held a sword before, yet his first swing carries a precision no beginner should possess. He squares his shoulders and prepares to swing, still looking like a boy borrowing a hero's pose. The blade continues through Lucy's spell, and her supposedly guaranteed hit fails before it can touch him. His focus does not break as the sword completes its first impossible arc. She is caught off guard as Taylor closes the distance faster than her expectations can recover. Her reflexes answer with an intermediate lightning spell that completely overwhelms him. That spell is too powerful for the exercise, so Lucy is disqualified, briefly making Taylor the first person to defeat her. He reacts like he has just witnessed a legendary scene, because the route is already moving differently than memory promised. He tracks the returning fighters from the sidelines, trying to understand where the changed route is taking them. The arena resets for the actual continuation, and the next exchange begins with both fighters still standing. The swordsman steps into the next exchange with the same stubborn resolve, even though the first spell has already punished him. The swordsman charges forward, while Lucy raises a barrier of light to stop him. The effort leaves Taylor bruised and kneeling, but the spectators can see that he refuses to surrender. Even the crowd looks shocked, while Lucy yawns as if this impossible duel is interrupting her sleep. The swordsman understands the problem. Running at a mage barehanded is not a strategy, no matter how brave it looks. His trembling hand reaches for another chance, and the brass knuckles only emphasize how badly the fight is going. The shaking gets worse as the pain spreads through his arm, but Taylor still grips his sword. His bruised fingers shake harder as the next attempt asks more than his body can give. He watches that bloody grip and recognizes a kind of stubbornness the original route never made safe. The swordsman lunges again, surrounded by a fiery aura that turns desperation into forward momentum. He shouts encouragement from the stands because Taylor needs one person to believe the next step can work. The swordsman leaps toward Lucy, forcing the distance closed before she can comfortably prepare another spell. She finally looks surprised when Taylor reaches her instead of collapsing at the edge of the arena. He expects lightning next, following the route he has memorized so carefully. She raises her hand, and the magic begins with the same calm precision as before. The two fighters collide inside a burst of energy, blade and spell pushing against each other. The swordsman keeps forcing his way through the barrier even as the magic tears at his balance. The arena holds its breath for one brief instant as the swordsman refuses to be pushed away. A dragon-shaped force erupts from the collision, turning the practice match into a spectacle no fake weapon can contain. The blast sends Taylor flying backward before he can finish the attack. The explosion catches Ed in the stands, leaving him staring at the arena with the same shock as the crowd. The swordsman crashes against the wall and hangs there, battered but still visible through the smoke. Debris explodes across the arena, and the sound finally makes the outcome impossible to deny. He realizes the spell was not lightning at all. Lucy used wind magic, and that change destroys his prediction. The mage is declared the victor while the arena erupts around the platform. The swordsman slumps against the wall in a torn uniform, defeated by the gap between determination and overwhelming power. He can only stare, because the protagonist's route has changed in front of him, and he no longer knows what comes next. Ed walks away from a defeated Taylor, but leaving him alone already feels dangerous. The original route needed Taylor to recover, and Ed has just changed that route. Then the system explains Lucy's new protection, a continuous wind spell from Marilda. She treats the discovery like a reward and asks for jerky instead of celebrating. Her presence caused the contract, which means Ed's attempt to avoid change made Lucy stronger. That would be enough trouble, but the Academy announces another combat match. The next match puts Ed Roth Taylor against Princess Fenia Elias Kloll. The princess approaches with their earlier confrontation still hanging between them. Her insight can read lies, so even a harmless answer could become evidence. Across the arena, Taylor picks up his sword and tries to stand proudly again. That recovery matters because Taylor's confidence is the thread holding the route together. Yet Taylor lost because Ed exists in Sylvania, and that thought feels uncomfortably accurate. He tries to encourage Taylor before the damage becomes permanent. The words sound awkward, but Ed tells him the defeat was only a bad matchup. He reminds Taylor that the Academy will bring worse hardships than this duel. The message is simple. Face those hardships yourself, because Ed cannot carry them forever. Her history explains why she can recognize the difference between comfort and deception. The Emperor noticed her insight first and mistook it for a blessing from the gods. In reality, insight detects lies and conspiracies before they can reach her. A royal life filled with schemes forced Fenia to sharpen that sense for survival. Over time, she learned to stare into the imperial family's darkness without admitting what she saw. That is why she can stand before Ed and demand the truth. The students remember a different Ed, one who used rank to humiliate juniors. They remember him altering test results whenever reality refused to obey him. The nearby gossip turns his attempt to help Taylor into another possible humiliation. With closed eyes, the princess admits that the rumors about Ed are accurate. Now she wonders whether those old crimes explain the strange sincerity she just witnessed. She studies the difference between the old cruelty and this new desperation. The duel begins before she can settle the question. As blue circles form, the princess announces that she wants a quick conclusion. His opponent uses water, while Ed's known magic is wind and fire. That knowledge should help, but he has no intention of revealing more than necessary. She attacks first, sending a wave of water across the arena. The blast throws Ed backward and leaves the crowd waiting for his counterattack. Her eyes test whether the famous Ed will finally fight back. Her focus tightens as the next spell gathers over the arena. The water crashes forward, forcing Ed to choose between defense and exposure. The mage's expression changes when the impact catches him completely. Ed is pushed across the floor while the audience stares at his effortless defeat. He lies still long enough for the announcer to declare Fenia the winner. The princess looks furious because Ed never seriously attempted to block her spell. Her realization is that the easy result is not an ordinary victory. The audience cheers for Fenia and mocks Ed's quick surrender. He stands, calls it a good fight, and makes Fenia even more suspicious. Her eyes follow him because the result does not match his old reputation. He realizes he never even met Fenia's eyes during the duel. The announcer confirms Fenia's victory. The hallway gives Ed room to think, because Fenia is dangerous when the scenario changes. The main character matters more to him than the princess, so he starts searching immediately. He looks through the corridor, expecting the defeated swordsman to be nearby. She catches him without an escort and demands to know what he is doing. He claims he learned from the duel, which only makes her frustration explode. She accuses him of refusing to win and rushing off the stage. Her frustration spills into every burden she has been carrying. He wonders whether she truly has that much anger stored inside. The princess grabs his collar while the hallway fills with everything she has been holding back. He places both hands on her shoulders and tells her to breathe. She struggles for air as the anger finally turns into exhaustion. For one breath, the ornate hallway is quieter than the argument inside her head. The empty corridor holds the tension while she tries to regain control. She covers her face, embarrassed that Ed saw her lose composure. She asks him to forget the outburst, but her questions are not finished. He asks whether he can leave, then blames his habit of overthinking. He remembers the palace and admits that he keeps predicting what everyone else wants. She narrows her eyes and stops guessing. This time, she asks directly. She suggests Ed cut ties with his family because he knew its darkness. Her deduction is wrong about his motive, but dangerously close to the truth. He denies knowing what she means and tells her it is too early. She refuses to accept the denial and demands an explanation for helping Taylor. He lies that he only encouraged Taylor to mock him and repair his reputation. The system labels the statement a lie, proving that insight has caught him. She stomps through her frustration while Ed clings to the original scenario. He tells her she can leave, then turns toward the door before she changes her mind. She points toward that door, reminding him that she is still watching his urgency. She notices that his attention is fixed on something urgent beyond the hallway. He thanks her and realizes this is the first time he has seen her unguarded. He realizes his presence as a new addition is causing these complications. He wonders how his burdens compare with the princess's burdens. He tells her the academy is not the palace and asks her to relax. He rushes away, terrified that he has lost too much time to find Taylor. The defeated swordsman sits with the wooden sword when Ed finally calls his name. He freezes as a defensive student steps between him and the defeated swordsman. The heroine shields Taylor with tearful anger and orders Ed to stop bothering him. She stares at him like the old villain, guarding Taylor as Ed faces another complication. The heroine steps between Ed and Taylor, ordering him to stop harassing the defeated swordsman. He can only stare because she has arrived before he found a safe explanation. The blonde student in the hall looks just as shocked, as if Taylor has somehow revived. His fighting spirit never stayed down for long, especially when Ayla stood beside him. She ran from the duel without looking back because Taylor needed someone to believe in him. She sits beside the wounded swordsman and reminds him that he has survived worse. With her beside him, Taylor rises again even when his body and confidence resist. He watches the pair and realizes their bond is stronger than the root's simple labels. The swordsman has shared too many battles with Ayla for a single defeat to erase him. When Ed is asked what he is planning, he admits he has no bond like theirs. He remembers treating Taylor as a tool who would save the world, while Ed focused on survival. That old mindset made the protagonist a shield instead of a person. Now Ed feels relief for Taylor's safety, not because the broken root has returned to normal. The swordsman is still alive, and for the moment, that is enough. He walks away while Taylor and Ayla complain that he is acting far too cool. The moment feels almost peaceful, which is exactly when the next disaster arrives. A fire explosion tears open the distance, making Ed wonder whether the scheduled event has begun. A dragon-like spirit rises from the flames, an event originally meant for the nail-building audience. A blue circle gathers around a reaching hand as the students react to the sudden threat. The spirit sorcerer lunges through the chaos, surrounding herself with shards of ice. The spirit sorcerer meets the fire with a calm expression that makes the danger look routine. The cracks spread through the ice as heat presses against her defense. He watches the dragon breathe another wave of flame through the broken shards. She remains focused, because this sparring match is already becoming the story's spectacle. The pair watches from a distance, recognizing an event that no longer matches memory. His eyes widen when the warning reaches him. More trials are already approaching. The spirit sorcerer braces herself inside the fire and magic, standing at the encounter's center. The dragon's flames surge again, marking the battle's dramatic finish. Her portrait stays calm after the attack, but that calm hides the cost of winning. The crowd surrounds Janica, celebrating the only victory their year can claim. She smiles and accepts the praise, even though the attention is about to become another burden. A sudden interruption pulls her eyes away from the celebration. An injured student is carried past on a stretcher, and Janica cannot pretend the match was harmless. She watches the injury in silence, finally forced to face what her spell caused. The result is clear. Lucy defeated Taylor, and Janica became the event's new center. He claps the dirt from his hands and realizes Janica's situation is getting more complicated. That is enough reason to leave the camp before another main character finds him. After 2 weeks, Ed admits that avoiding important characters is harder than surviving the forest. His fishing net has solved the immediate food problem, but comfort still cannot make him lazy. The status window shows his stamina rising, proving that the routine is changing his body. He stands in the water and reminds himself that steady work still matters. She suddenly appears, covering her eyes as if his fishing spot is a private room. He shouts at her for arriving without warning while he is still holding his gear. She asks why he keeps returning to this place, calling it a secret base. She wants to talk and, more dangerously, wants advice from him. He cannot understand why she chose him when the academy is full of people who adore her. She explains that Ed left early and may not know what happened in the joint training. She remembers being carried away injured after hurting someone with an intermediate spell. He recalls that the spell was forbidden, even if her friends preferred to discuss her victory. By the fire, Janica admits she may have overreacted and cannot erase the guilt. She considers apologizing, but expects her friends to defend her before she can decide. He gives the practical answer: apologize if she truly believes she was wrong. The beloved student is someone people rush to protect. If she feels guilty, her supporters comfort her before the guilt can teach her anything. She understands that support cannot erase a mistake, even when it feels reassuring. She appreciates that Ed will not take her side unconditionally. She relaxes after speaking honestly, then waves away the idea that his answer offended her. Her eyes study Ed and notice that he is nothing like the person described last year. Her cheerful personality hides an observant mind that reads the distance he keeps. Even when money was scarce, Ed never looked desperate, as if he wanted people to stay away. That guardedness strangely reassures her, because it feels more honest than perfect kindness. She smiles by the fire and admits that Ed's distance has become a strange comfort. The conversation ends under quiet fireflies, leaving Ed with one more relationship he never planned. The next day begins calmly, but Ed's footsteps soon lead him into serious trouble. He realizes the game is full of bad endings triggered by choices that look helpful. A choice to save Isla during a kobold ambush can still end with her falling from a cliff. The choice to protect the Golden Daughter from a fire spirit can leave Taylor burned to death. He notices someone following him and starts moving faster before the pursuer can catch up. He turns around and demands to know how long this new problem intends to chase him. The Golden Daughter, Tortel Kesheln, finally reveals herself as the game's fourth heroine. She smiles like a business deal and offers to buy 2 hours of Ed's time. The Golden Daughter asks Ed to buy 2 hours with a polite smile. The system identifies Tortel as the hidden heroine. Fenia is favored, while Tortel is framed as a villain until later. The two heroines form a crossroads, and Ed refuses to choose a road for them. He walks away, refusing to let a heroine rewrite his survival plan. She keeps pace with him, trying to pull him back into the conversation. Her praise targets his dedication, hoping to soften his resistance. He calls her arrogant, but she laughs as if the insult costs her nothing. 3 gold coins finally turn the offer into something concrete. The request is simple: Ed must help her become friends with Janica. For a desperate student, the down payment equals a month's earnings. He asks if the Golden Daughter buys connections like supplies. She says to keep the money. Allies are worth more. Allies mean protection when academy politics turn against her. Ed realizes she has predicted a political fight with Princess Fenia. That conflict has not begun publicly, but Tortel is already collecting leverage. She must gather allies before anyone else notices the danger coming. He offers a handshake, turning the conversation into a business arrangement he can still escape. Her hand reaches out with a smile that reveals nothing about the real price. The gesture makes the power of money look almost harmless. Small amounts become dangerous when desperate people depend on them. 1 coin can buy pride, family, and eventually the person holding it. Tortel knows preying on desperation is easy, but it does not comfort her. She admits this is how the world works. Then she smiles at the absurdity of it. The Golden Daughter walks away, while Ed watches her with a serious expression. He considers how useful the money would have been. He rejects it because standing between Tortel and Janica would multiply every problem. Night falls, but Ed still fears the coins may change the original storyline. Tortel is not humiliated by his rejection, so she approaches Janica with a calm voice. Loose hair makes the meeting casual, but every word remains a negotiation. A perfect business person never misses profit or influence. She opens with the joint training controversy and the forbidden intermediate spell. Her apology sounds polite as she measures Janica's guilt. The bandaged arm reminds the fairy student that her victory had a painful price. The reassurance sounds kind, but the calculation behind it is colder. Janica's eyes widen when she asks whether the conversation with Ed went well. Tortel answers with restraint and lets the spirits reveal what they overheard. Glowing spirits surround her as she calls them talkative. The remembered forest conversation returns through those talkative spirits. Janica realizes the Golden Daughter is offering to buy her friendship through someone else. Gold coins appear between them as Tortel asks for help. The offer treats friendship like an investment, creating a tense atmosphere. Janica answers that sincerity cannot be purchased, and Ed's handshake returns to mind. The gold in her hand now looks less important than that simple gesture. That comparison leaves her embarrassed because she judged Ed too quickly. Tortel walks away to prepare a contract with a high-ranked spirit. She pauses, recognizing that Janica is more complicated than a fairy tale. She apologizes for the injury she caused and wishes Janica a quick recovery. The cheerful expression remains, but the pressure behind it never leaves. The door closes, leaving Janica alone with the difficult decision. Janica decides to work harder after realizing how close Tortel is to breaking. The Golden Daughter sits alone with the expectations of people who believe she can never fail. Bright laundry marks the return of Ed's quiet survival routine. The white-haired boy notices a strange smell. The symbol triggers a force that tears the laundry from its line. His finished work disappears in the sudden blast. He shouts at the unseen intruder while cloth hangs over his head. An elegant senior maid from Awfulus Hall appears with a basket and perfect composure. The memory of being thrown out of the dormitory makes Belle Maya instantly recognizable. She approaches the makeshift camp and admits she already knew he lived there. The pile of sticks and luggage makes the primitive shelter look worse than he expected. He answers awkwardly while his attention remains fixed on the basket. The elite maids of Awfulus Hall are skilled enough to gather ingredients ordinary books cannot explain. Ed suspects the basket contains high-grade forest knowledge, not merely food. He tries to make Belle speak casually, but she refuses to drop her professional distance. Her eye widens for a moment when he changes the subject. He remembers that Belle never changed the main plot, so he abandons his first approach. Ed smiles and suggests that two extras can become friends if both stop pretending. The system confirms that Belle has taught him which berries, mushrooms, and herbs are edible. The basket proves the lesson was practical rather than polite conversation. He now has enough meat and fish to make survival less desperate. He uses ignition to start the fire beneath his cooking pot. The flame catches cleanly, showing how repetition strengthened his basic magic. Fire magic and wind magic both reach level 10 through constant use. Herbal tea becomes another finished creation, made from Belle's gathered herbs. Ed drinks it, and finally sees the reward hidden inside every small routine. The sun sets while his work is already complete. He admits that survival is becoming fun, which is dangerous for someone planning to leave. A sudden bright light appears above the camp and breaks the peaceful rhythm. His eyes follow the mysterious glow as it fills the sky. A powerful beam strikes the ground with enough force to erase the shelter. The campsite vanishes inside a violent explosion of light and flying debris. Ed is thrown through the burning camp before he can understand the attack. A cloud of dust and smoke swallows the entire shelter. He recovers among the wreckage, pale and shaken by the sudden destruction. Ed searches the ruined camp, grieving the work that had made survival possible. A pale girl with long white hair sits in the crater, and Ed recognizes the world's strongest mage. The crater smokes as Ed sits across from the pale girl who nearly killed him. The system calls her Belle Maya, the world's greatest mage, though she looks helpless and shivers. He explains, a furious maid nearly crushed him, so he teleported away. The pair stands near the crater, and Ed realizes the impact left him unharmed. His frustration finally breaks through as he tries to understand the chaos around her. He snaps at Maya and asks whether she has any jerky left. She touches her head, dazed, and admits that she used up all her magic. The mage sits exhausted, as if destroying a camp required every remaining spell. Then a sharp glint returns to her eyes as she questions what Ed did before the blast. He answers with dark satisfaction. The ruined house is receiving its own retribution. Sunset spreads across the mountains while Ed says this disaster belongs to Belle Maya. The practical solution is a stronger shelter made from real wood. The library becomes his construction manual. He studies until his eye narrows at closing time. A pink-haired first year approaches and comments on how hard he has been working. She introduces herself as Elka Islan from the Faculty of Magic. Her warm eyes seem to ask him to return the introduction. He gives his name without expecting the answer to change anything. The moment she hears Ed Rothtaylor, Elka recognizes the name and stiffens. His reputation has followed him into another quiet corner of the academy. She says he is nothing like the rumors, and the honesty catches him off guard. She praises the technical texts he finished in only a few days. The rumors mean little to her because people who judge him do not know him. Her bright smile makes the library feel less hostile than before. The pink-haired student mentions someone just as sincere while Ed turns to leave. He accepts her support with a brief thanks and keeps the exchange small. She waves goodbye before cleaning the library. He notices something strange just as the evening seems finished. A magical disturbance tears through the library and sends both students into alarm. The apprentice looks around while the room begins to lose its balance. Books rip from the shelves and fly through the air as the disturbance grows. The title card announces Episode 1's final chapter, The Glaskin Showdown. A gigantic purple summoning circle opens above the academy, turning the sky ominous. At 11:30, students gather in a temporary camp before the student center. 2 hours into the disaster, Ayla recognizes the rune from a spirit magic book. The circle belongs to Glaskin, the highest-ranked spirit of darkness. The princess realizes that only one sorcerer can call that many spirits. The answer points to Janica Failover, now berserk under the darkness spirit's influence. The gathered students accept that their beloved classmate has become the enemy. The princess admits the barrier is temporary, while Taylor insists they enter. She argues that cooperation might let them defeat a high-rank spirit. The anxious student rejects the idea, as if the plan is already a funeral. The group asks whether they are prepared to face Janica and the spirit boss. More information reveals that the threat inside is escalating. Two high-rank spirits are waiting: Tarkan, the berserk fire spirit, and Velusfer, spirit of darkness. The same student calls the mission suicide and refuses to join it. The students cannot understand how Janica could summon power on that scale alone. The spirit expert explains that Janica may carry Velusfer's power. Spirits of darkness are normally too powerful for a sorcerer to control. The explanation shows demons taking spirit sorcerers like puppets and turning talent into prey. The immediate question is what they do next, not how Janica commands Velusfer. Someone points out that only one person can make the final decision. Every face turns toward Princess Phinia. The camp falls silent while she weighs the command. She remembers Ed's careless claim that her burden is not heavier than his. The memory reveals him, telling her to find peace instead of carrying everything alone. The princess orders them to enter in 1 hour with the strongest students and Claire. She declares that she will take responsibility for the mission. An aide reports that the resident employees in the teaching area have been assessed. The report reveals that Audrey Hall and the Potion Archives are on strike. Only the gathered students can act, until another student remembers 2 more names. An apprentice librarian and a sophomore student are still inside the student library. Elka Island's name causes a sudden reaction from someone who knows her. The classmate confirms that Elka is in his apprentice librarian class. He insists on rescuing her because she has no power to defend herself. The princess tries to calm him, reminding him that Janica is the priority. The boy remains conflicted while the princess asks them to trust the report. She presses for the other student's identity, and the messenger begins to stammer. The enraged student grabs the messenger when the hiding becomes obvious. The crying student finally reveals the name everyone feared. The name is Ed Roth Taylor, and darkness seems to gather around it. She explains that Ed stayed late and that she left Elka there out of annoyance. The group imagines the old villain alone with the apprentice, while she defends Elka's indifference to rumors. The spear student calls Ed shameless and prepares to run. The princess shouts after him, shaken by the possibility that she trusted wrong. She reaches for Jix, trying to prevent another disaster. Her hand stops as she weighs rumors against Ed's recent actions. The princess tells them to trust Ed just as a beam of light pierces the sky. The entire group watches in stunned silence as the academy answers with another impossible event. The princess reaches toward the light, caught between shock and disbelief. A dark figure appears inside the rising magic, its energy swallowing the ordinary scene. The explosion launches Ed through the air while Phinia watches from below. Blue demons charge from the aftermath with glowing eyes and murderous intent. He cuts them down with concentrated energy, his silhouette frighteningly calm. He raises the weapon again and promises to beat the remaining demons into the ground. The hand on the grass introduces Jix, the spear of grass, in savage land. One green eye scans the wilderness for movement. The hunter hides in tall grass and confirms that he has tracked a deer. The northern grasslands are lawless enough to make every silence dangerous. Even the deer looks back as if it understands that something is wrong. The wolf-pelted hunter leaps forward with the instincts of a predator. Survival here means checking your own neck first. His memories begin with a child separated from family and forced to hunt before reading. Town life confuses him because corpses, not shops, taught him how to survive. He carries a dead deer through the streets while strangers whisper that he eats people. A guarded face appears when someone finally asks the boy for his name. A kind girl approaches and breaks through the isolation that made him look dangerous. She tells him he resembles a wolf walking on 2 legs. An abandoned wolf pup appears while she asks whether he is all right. The realization makes him cry because no one had named his loneliness before. The girl and her father welcome him into their home. Cooked food and simple tools slowly teach him how civilization works. She cuts his hair, marking the distance between the wild child and the man he is becoming. He takes a combat stance when Elka's safety becomes the only thing that matters. The fight shows how much strength he will spend to keep her safe. He would gladly return to being a beast if that were the price of protecting his people. Rumors about Ed cheating and harassing a junior leave Elka distressed. The spear student rushes through the corridor with urgency, replacing every other thought. His focus hardens as exhaustion fails to slow the pursuit. He finds Ed injured on the floor and demands to know where Elka is. The collar tightens under his hand, while desperation turns the question into a threat. He runs toward the reading room before Ed can offer another answer. Ed bursts into the room and calls for Elka, too exhausted to hide his concern. She lies unconscious on a table with blood on her clothes. Relief finally reaches him, and his trembling hand becomes a silent prayer. He leans back, breathing hard after finding her alive. His narrowed eyes begin to process the impossible protection around her. Heavy bookcases form a barrier, while blackout curtains keep the spirits away. He places a hand on the surface and follows the evidence left behind. A message orders whoever finds Elka to stay calm and avoid provoking spirits. The dark library shows how much work protected one unconscious student. Blood on the floor does not belong to Elka, which means another person paid the price. A bright doorway reveals a trail of blood leading out of the room. The vision shows a wounded man sacrificing himself for Elka. Ed realizes the protector was Ed Rothtaylor, and the answer makes no sense. The revelation frustrates him because he was close to understanding the truth earlier. The scene shifts 3 hours back to the moment the library first broke apart. Books fly through the room while the earlier chaos begins again. A bright light enters through the window and announces that the crisis has started. He carries Elka on his back with trained strength. The summoning rune glows outside, confirming that the Glaskin showdown has begun. He closes the curtain because interfering with the main characters should be someone else's job. His face hardens as he chooses to preserve the future rather than change it. He blocks the library entrance with furniture, making a temporary shelter. While working, he studies Janika's strange connection. Materialized spirits attack, and Ed is surprised to see Janika fighting them directly. His hand gathers magic as he realizes the disaster has created an opportunity. He charges forward and decides to use the event before it disappears. The status window says fire magic and spirit magic are near the next level. He meets Jix in a dark corridor while Elka remains on his back. The hunter stares at his bruises, trying to decide whether Ed is a threat or an ally. Ed claims he was training, maintaining composure through the pain. Jix admits he understands Ed differently after seeing what he did. Ed listens as the hunter prepares to acknowledge a debt. The gratitude is genuine, and it surprises Ed more than the confrontation did. Jix vows to repay the debt, treating his promise like an oath. Ed notices that he had underestimated the importance of Elka and Jeeks to the original story. The hunter is supposed to become a key ally to Taylor, not remain in this corridor. Ed deduces that Jeeks abandoned the student center to rescue Elka. He orders the hunter back, insisting that this area is not where he belongs. Taylor needs help because he barely avoids failure, even when the route is intact. Jix questions Ed's confidence in someone he has never spoken to. He explains the tactic. Taylor needs Element Slash to hurt Tarkin. The hunter thanks him, while Ed urges him to move quickly so he can finally rest. Jix leaves with advice that may restore the original sequence. The timeline reveals a contradiction as he watches Jix go. Jix and Taylor are not friends, and the two have never even spoken. The original story made them allies after a duel, but the timing has already shifted. The early Glaskin showdown erased Act 1, Scene 9. Without that friendship, Taylor never learned Element Slash. The raid team attacks Tarkan and discovers that none of them can damage the fire spirit. Ed understands the severity of the failure as the team struggles without an answer. The story has deviated so far that every safe assumption now points toward disaster. The student center becomes the raid team's exhausted base after the failed invasion. A team member apologizes for the delay and promises to make amends. The group admits the first invasion would have failed regardless. Claire, injured and unable to walk properly, still asks to join the next attempt. Ed stands before the exhausted raid team and sees the crisis waiting for a decision. Claire warns that the summoning ritual is nearly complete and time is disappearing. Ed announces that the raid team must split into 2 groups. He takes command of one side and finally admits that he will intervene in the storyline. The battered raid team faces Ed in the ruined student center. The anxious student gestures in disbelief at the situation. A student in a fur collar tries to calm him and asks everyone to listen. A tactical explanation makes clear that Tarkan's shell resists Velasfer's control of Janika. The answer is a split. Lure the fire spirit while another group subdues Janika. The red-haired student reminds him that this Tarkan is worse than the practice version. Their earlier escape happened through luck, not control. One failed group would leave everyone fighting both spirits. He answers that risks matter only when another option exists. Defeating Janika should neutralize Tarkan as well. Someone asks who will enter the luring group. The red-haired student calls it a suicide mission, before anyone can disguise the danger. A raised hand volunteers for the worst assignment. He rejects any second volunteer and orders the others to focus on subduing Janika. Speed makes him the best choice, even if he does not know how long he can maintain it. The plan needs no sacrificial lambs and no equal division of strength. The chosen pair is enough to complete the lure with Ed. The freshman panics when the trio becomes official and refuses to participate. His protests continue while Ed keeps calculating the minutes they have left. He stays calm because the plan is the only route forward. The princess questions his intentions, frustrated by his control of the crisis. The third princess uses her authority to formalize the order. The subduing group will contain Taylor, Jix, Alvira, Ayla, and Phenia. The luring group will contain Clebius, Lortel, and Ed. The princess gives one final command: do not die, for any reason. The 2 groups move out before fear can become another delay. The Nail Hall corridor becomes the first battlefield. The red-haired student asks how Ed plans to stall an unhurt fire lizard. He answers that they will win, though the confidence is partly an act. He tells Clebius that fear is acceptable, but the top freshman has a job. The freshman still wonders whether Ed has a real plan. A clawed hand appears, announcing that the fire lizard has found them. Blue flames coil around the creature as it lunges through the corridor. The princess waits with folded arms, watching for an opening. A small smirk crosses Ed's face as he looks down at the next move. He runs forward with his gear ready, choosing action before courage can disappear. The lizard answers with blue energy that turns the corridor into a furnace. Clebius's panic breaks through every attempt at discipline. He hits the ground and looks up as ghostly shapes blur behind him. He rises with his sword ready while the fire lizard looms directly behind him. The attack becomes a chase, forcing Ed through the academy. An empty corridor makes the pursuit feel more isolated. A calm eye watches from the side as the plan continues beneath the panic. The red-haired student gives instructions while Ed keeps the lizard moving. Her slight smile suggests that control is returning to the operation. He dodges another attack, relying on speed instead of strength. The red-haired student turns toward the combat grounds and prepares the entry path. Magical energy gathers around her as she takes position. Several circles appear while her spell locks the route into place. Someone offers Ed encouragement as the next attack gathers. The fire lizard unleashes a surge of energy that forces Lortel to react. The corridor explodes, sending debris everywhere. A stone pillar collapses under the impact. The red-haired student stands in the wreckage, calm amid the destruction. The students stare at the result, shocked by its scale. She looks back with a small smile, as if the explosion has created the opening she wanted. Another burst of fire fills the corridor. Silhouettes run past Lortel, confirming the lure worked. Her eye narrows as she prepares the next spell. Blue energy surrounds her while the fire lizard closes in. A desperate student runs from a spectral lizard and begs for help. The darkness states the truth. The target cannot escape. He stands bloodied but focused, already calculating his next move. The fire lizard releases another torrent. Its shell ignores ordinary attacks. A dark pouch appears in Ed's hand, and he refuses to explain it. He crouches on a balcony, ready to risk the raid. The red-haired student raises an ice barrier while a companion runs. The wall of frost separates the students from the fire. No support arrives, leaving the lure isolated. The lizard crashes into the ice and shatters pieces of the barrier. He leaps through the shadows, executing his secret maneuver. His face stays focused despite the pressure. The sleeping mage lies nearby, unaware that the academy is collapsing. The scene pauses on darkness before revealing a map of the raid area. The map links achievement conditions to Adele, Lucy, and Belle. Clearing every condition requires timing he has already lost. He carries the sleeping Lucy away, annoyed that the strongest mage is still impossible to wake. The girl sits in a rocky space, dazed by the sudden relocation. A maid appears with a dark aura, turning the rescue into another threat. The girl falls asleep again as if the crisis is none of her concern. Her surprised face appears when the silence breaks. A bundle of dried meat becomes Ed's only reliable bribe. The girl accepts it and chews while Ed tries to move. He holds her close as the plan collapses into improvisation. Someone grits their teeth, measuring the pain of the next decision. He leaps from the high point with Lucy still chewing. The fire lizard fires a beam. The girl begins to cry while the beam closes the distance. He watches the dark academy from a railing, bracing for what comes next. A purple beam descends through the night and pins the lizard beneath it. The energy is too large for an ordinary attack. An extreme close-up catches the instant Ed understands the situation has changed again. The lizard rises with dark magic and floating crystals surrounding its body. He raises his fist, finally ready to strike the storyline himself. The battle reaches its true center when a gentle embrace reminds everyone why Janica mattered. Her classmates praise her skill and reliability, still treating her as the person who saves every crisis. Without Janica, they admit, their second year would have been unbearable. Now, the pink-haired student stands alone inside a purple aura and broken glass. A bare, bloodied foot steps onto the shards as dependence turns into cruelty. Light erupts through the battlefield and pushes the crisis into its next phase. The students in red uniforms brace themselves for whatever the darkness brings. Dark chains bind Janica while red light fills her eyes. A shadow dragon rises behind her, making the possession look larger than one student. A winged demon descends in purple energy as everyone below looks up. A student lies in the blood and exhaustion left by the first attack. A shoe steps forward, carrying the group toward another impossible exchange. Purple fire tears across the field and forces the students to scatter. Two students watch in shock because the demon is stronger than their plans. One body is thrown backward while another fighter prepares a desperate defense. The remaining students hold their stance, knowing caution is the only thing keeping them alive. Someone clutches their head and apologizes for a disaster no apology can repair. Wide eyes follow the enemy as its power becomes impossible to measure. Heavy breathing replaces confidence while the group struggles to keep moving. The demon continues its assault, and purple flames cut off every easy escape. A calm student looks back, preparing for a final stand instead of another retreat. An enigmatic smile suggests that someone has hidden one last plan. A bandaged hand begins to glow blue as the counterattack finally gathers. Ice crystals surround a fighter who prepares to meet the demon head-on. Footsteps strike the ground, turning hesitation into movement. The demon roars, trapping the students inside the sound of its fury. Purple flames engulf its body and make the creature expand into something monstrous. One student is thrown through the air, proving the danger has not weakened. A green fist rises, carrying the decision to fight back. A focused eye catches the instant the attack finally reaches the demon. The battered young man turns through the struggle, refusing to lose the opening. His blue eye burns through grime and blood as the fight reaches its limit. The shadow creature roars over him, its teeth filling the dark space. Blue energy cuts through the purple aura and opens a path toward the core. The red-haired mage channels ice-like power, ready to spend the last of her strength. The creature's eye glows with the pressure of an entire high-rank spirit. A green aura gathers around the fighter who promises the same answer: finish the fight. His face becomes pure concentration as the energy climbs. The green wind strikes the shadow creature and forces it backward. The creature breaks apart into purple particles as the system confirms Tarkan's defeat. New notifications report that spirit connection and understanding have increased. The protagonist kneels among the wounds, exhausted by the victory. A claw of dark energy rises overhead, warning that the battle is not finished. Red force explodes around the sword and throws the remaining fighters into debris. The protagonist is hurled backward, shocked by the attack that follows Tarkan. The title card returns after the discharge, separating the battle from its aftermath. Sunlight filters through a tree where the survivors finally rest. The group lies beneath the branches, exhausted but alive. Yanika watches Ed with a small smile that carries more meaning than a celebration. Her hand glows warmly as she offers him a quiet gesture of support. Ed accepts the hand, turning exhaustion into a brief moment of trust. Several gold coins appear as the practical reward for surviving the invasion. Yanika looks down and asks what they should do now. His eyes widen while he considers how many routes have already changed. Boots move along the path as the survivors prepare to leave the battlefield. Ed stands again, looking toward the next problem instead of the victory behind him. A red uniformed student bows deeply, showing respect after the impossible battle. The same student reacts with exaggerated shock when the next consequence appears. 3 students gather in the dim light, each measuring what the battle cost. A blonde student speaks seriously while a smaller classmate sobs on the ground. Ed leans beneath the tree, catching his breath after spending everything he had. A red-haired student flashes a sharp grin, already treating the aftermath like an opportunity. The group argues while she gestures at the student in the fur-collared coat. Ed answers with a gentle, tired smile despite the blood on his face. The students stand among the ruins at sunset, united only by survival. A white-haired student and a thoughtful girl share a quiet look. The blonde student watches the group with a serious expression in the golden light. A short-haired student looks into the distance, already accepting the next responsibility. The swordsman stands beside the red-haired girl while her smile softens the scene. She looks away with crossed arms, carrying a sadness she refuses to explain. The red-haired student later stands in a dim discussion, authoritative even after the battle. She turns toward an ancient tree glowing in the garden, as if seeking an answer there. Hands hold a dark, faceted stone whose purpose Ed has not yet understood. Still injured, Ed walks toward a massive door with the stone in his hand. The desolate hall beyond it is cold, cracked, and untouched by the Academy's noise. A dark metal box waits in the empty space like a sealed answer. Ed reaches toward the black surface, concentrating on what the door is hiding. His eyes widen when realization replaces caution. A shadowed figure laughs behind the door, turning the discovery into a threat. A light-haired woman sits in the darkness, dirty and wounded, looking up with a dangerous smile. Janika's bloodied eyes widen at another surprise. Ed stands beside her, making silence heavier. A red-haired girl walks toward the door as another watches. Boxes fill the space until support becomes a wall. Every note becomes a rock on her shoulders. One dark gift waits in her hands like duty. She stands among presents, unable to feel celebrated. Velisfer exploited that darkness and expected the berserk outcome. After Lucy's victory, students redirected their admiration to Janica. A light-haired girl curls up among unexplained shadows. Ed hides behind his shelter, watching the forest with a bruised eye. His focus survives the pain of the failed route. The light-haired girl clutches her head, caught between distress and laughter. A circular crack records the force that brought her there. Her legs curl beneath her in defeat. She looks down with a sad smile, unable to hide it. Ed resolves to save her one day. A spectral wolf appears with a request he cannot ignore. He trains blindfolded, sharpening the instincts survival will demand. The girl kneels in a red arena, trapped by chains. A desk covered in papers offers warmth. Her bright smile returns in a gentler memory. An older memory follows. Braided hair frames a quiet smile before everything breaks. Her eye still holds lost warmth. Ed offers support without asking thanks. Students gather under sunset, believing the conflict is over. The stage stays bright while suffering remains dark. Tears run down her profile as expectations hurt. She weeps, unable to turn pain into joy. Glowing spirits gather through the halls. Her eye widens at the impossible number. A wing-shaped spirit reacts above them. Light-made animals surround them. Birds, cats, deer. She sits among the spirits, overwhelmed by beauty. The system reports spirits showing interest. Elgo and Driss appear as interested low-rank spirits. Marilda's notice marks a high-rank wind spirit's interest. The academy appears beneath a clear sky before public consequences return. The light-haired girl stands under a spotlight, carrying the burden publicly. Older figures and students react as judgment becomes real. She raises a hand and addresses the crowd. An older man slams the gavel while the red-haired woman smiles. Forbidden items and locations appear under red marks. Expulsion flashes across the light. Those around her celebrate as if the academy is saved. Two women surround the disgraced girl with questions. Tea and pastries make it look civilized. She sits between them, unable to relax. One sharp eye studies her without mercy. Another gaze measures what she withholds. The table becomes an interrogation. She plays with her braid, embarrassed by their attention. A delicate flower crown changes suspicion into something softer. She crafts it in a meadow, absorbed by the task. Her face lifts when someone calls from beyond the flowers. A young man in uniform arrives on a white horse. She places the crown on his head, shyly smiling. They run through the meadow holding hands, free. The memory returns to the women, leaving her embarrassed. The brown-haired woman answers nervously. The girl dreams over pastries as another woman runs away. She waves brightly. The horrified reaction confirms trouble. Her expression sharpens as the conversation turns dangerous. The woman in red asks a question with an innocent-looking smile. The girl leans closer, hesitant, as the red-suited woman controls the exchange. The answer shocks her. Her face flushes. She jumps up while the woman in red remains seated. The red-suited woman raises a hand in triumph. She drops her head onto the table, overwhelmed. A blond young man stands with closed eyes, far from the noisy conversation. He carries a box of tools, ready to work instead of asking what the argument meant. The troubled girl appears in the distance, still playing with her fingers. She notices the young man too late and turns shy before he can reach her. He waves to get her attention, and she startles as if caught doing something forbidden. The girl runs away with her face covered, leaving the toolbox behind her. The young man remains stunned, trying to understand the sudden escape. His hand reaches into the box and chooses a saw. He stands alone in the clearing, preparing the wood instead of chasing after her. The first mark appears on the wooden surface under his careful hand. He keeps working in the clearing until the simple task becomes its own answer. The stacked logs wait nearby, rough and ready for construction. A result card shows strong grades mixed with a few weak marks. The pink-haired girl runs away crying while other students watch with annoyance. Two angry students glare at their own hands, frustrated by the latest disruption. More logs wait in a neat pile for the structure Ed is building. The frame of a small wooden hut rises on stone foundations. A witch-hatted girl lies face down with a rope around her neck, while a boy stares down at her. A short-haired maid holds a basket of vegetables and observes the scene without comment. The maid's surprise grows when something outside her expectations appears. The boy climbs onto the frame and secures another piece of wood with a hammer. The pink-haired girl runs away again while the students in red watch helplessly. Their hands rise in panic when another unexpected event interrupts the work. Two boys hammer together on the roof, turning survival into a shared construction job. The blonde worker sweats through the concentration required to keep the frame stable. Tally marks on the wood record how long the project has consumed them. A knife stands in the ground as a new arrival approaches the clearing. Loafers cross the wooden floor, bringing an unfamiliar presence into the hut. The exhausted boy sits under a single spotlight, startled by whoever entered. Green fireflies gather around the roof at night, making the crude shelter look peaceful. The blonde worker closes his eyes, satisfied that the work is finally complete. Sunset settles over the finished shelter, turning survival into a visible achievement. The boy stands in the doorway while the pink-haired girl waits on the distant path. She clutches her hands outside the hut, nervous about taking the next step. A sudden impact jolts Ed awake inside the finished cabin. A uniformed girl lies on the floor where no one invited her. Ed stares down, irritation fighting his confusion. She stands and waves, offering an awkward explanation. Her nervous laugh only makes the arrival stranger. The surprise settles into an uncomfortable silence. A comb moves through the girl's hair in a more formal room. The maid brushes carefully while her guest sits still. The routine continues as the girl waits for news. The maid leans close and whispers something unexpected. Her mouth opens as the message reaches her. Her eyes widen with sudden, overwhelming feeling. Outside, she points at Ed and demands an answer. Ed scratches his head, too sheepish to sound convincing. Her face reddens as indignation battles embarrassment. Ed's training has changed his body and sharpened his endurance. Wearing a military cap, she complains that spirits never notice her. The complaint ends in a comic collapse and a nosebleed. One eye tightens as a new realization takes hold. At sunset, Ed stands proudly before the cabin he built. The girl looks at the result with a soft blush. Her warm smile turns the hard work into something personal. A tiny witch-shaped figure watches from the roof. Inside, the fire gives the evening a gentle center. Hands lift a warm mug beside the flames. The girl sits near the fire, lost in thought. Ed studies her with a serious, patient expression. They sit together while the fire separates and joins them. Elsewhere, a red-ribboned girl stands among gifts, reading quietly. Boxes and papers cover the floor around her. She rises into the air, explaining herself to the others. Rain-darkened silence makes the situation feel futile. By the fire, she holds a mug and looks quietly wounded. Firelight catches in her eye as thought hardens into resolve. Ed and the girl sit on logs beneath the night. Her expression softens while she listens. A small smile confirms that the conversation reached her. The two remain beside the flames, letting silence speak. Ed looks across at her, thoughtful and guarded. She answers with a gentle smile over her mug. Ed relaxes enough to enjoy the quiet. His profile turns toward the darkness beyond the fire. Together, they watch the flames with their backs to the night. Rain covers a distant building and changes the mood. A sealed grimoire promises knowledge tied to aspectual magic. A cloaked girl studies it behind a glowing case. She crosses her arms, confident in what she intends. The campfire returns, small and bright against the dark, holding back the rain. Ed and the girl sit together, sheltered by its warmth. Ed closes his eyes, satisfied with the fragile peace. Rain hangs over the academy as trouble gathers there. A student and a maid stand before the wet buildings. The academy grounds disappear into the storm. A carriage moves through the rain toward the conflict. A student with a red armband looks ready to break. Students raise torches and fists in open protest. Their proposition lies beneath determined hands. A red-haired girl watches the rain from a dark room. A man with glasses stares forward, cold and focused. He stands among the protesters as their anger rises. A sealed envelope carries the decision they are waiting for. A tall, white-haired woman with an eye patch commands attention. The protest swells again beneath the rain and firelight. Fire consumes a document, turning policy into threat. Three older men meet, worried by how quickly events changed. A hooded figure holds a magical book inside a blue aura. The red-haired girl returns to the window and the rain. She looks up between the buildings at the black sky. Her hand reaches toward the glass. She studies her reflection instead of the storm. Documents on a desk reveal how carefully she is planning. A faint green light gathers in her eye. The window's reflection holds her attention. Shoes splash through a puddle below the dark building. A hooded figure moves down the hallway with purpose. The girl presses her hand to the window again. Her fingers rest against the cold pane. Behind her, a shadow makes the room feel watched. The protest leader raises his fist and shouts through the rain. The bespectacled man leads the crowd with fierce conviction. A maid opens a door and finds a hooded stranger waiting. The stranger grabs her before she can call for help. He carries her away through the dark passage. A shoe strikes hard, making the abduction more violent. Rain frames a bright doorway where the next escape begins. Three students stare in terror at what they cannot stop. The hooded figure carries someone through the light while others watch. A hidden face issues an order about the office floor. The young man with glasses looks panicked beneath his hood. Only part of a face emerges from the blue darkness. A light-haired young man looks straight ahead, ready for the crisis. His exhausted face shows how much the long, violent night has already cost him. The sky rests behind the trees while the wilderness holds its breath. The system lists a novice fighter built around archery. His hand finds red berries beside a fresh footprint. From behind a tree, he draws his bow. A deer grazes ahead, unaware of the drawn arrow. His eye widens at something beyond the hunt. A maid walks through the woods with a basket. A shirtless man trains among the trees nearby. He keeps aiming, sweating under the pressure of the moment. A magic circle blooms overhead and breaks the quiet. A young witch descends on a glowing platform. From the cabin window, Ed watches her excitement grow. He gestures for her to leave while she stays outside. His sweat shows how her persistence continues. The cabin roof sits peacefully beneath the open sky. A pink-haired girl arrives, smiling with a bucket of eggs. A pair of feet steps into a wooden tub filled with white cloth. She holds the clean fabric, cheerful even during the chore. He looks over and can only answer, "Oh." She turns away blushing while Ed stares in shock. Her expression darkens, revealing a side he did not expect. The moon rises over the woods and the uneasy night. The arrows wait in the dirt as footsteps approach. A red-haired girl walks through the trees with a maid behind her. Her small smile suggests she already knows how this will unfold. He looks back at her, wary of the hidden purpose. They continue through the woods while the tension tightens. A wide eye catches the danger before anyone speaks. The confrontation finds Ed angry and desperate. The darkness closes over the encounter and carries it elsewhere. The students in red surround Ed inside a grand hall. The furious student screams Ed Rothstailer's name with open rage. His fist crashes into Ed's face. The blow leaves Ed on the floor while Jeeks prepares to continue. Someone recoils, shocked that Jix has gone this far. Back in the woods, the red-haired girl and her maid approach Ed. Her knowing smile keeps control of the meeting. In shadow, Ed sits isolated beneath the surrounding figures. She stands over him while he looks up. Her sharp eye measures his next move. He answers with surprise and apprehension. She looks down with a faint, unreadable smile. Their handshake turns tension into a dangerous agreement. The rain begins over a roof as the setting shifts. By the fire, Ed reads while rain darkens the woods. A blue and red divide faces each other across a library. He returns to his book, calm and focused. A girl approaches the fire, shy despite the weather. They sit together and talk while the rain continues. The wet forest presses close around their small shelter. She looks at Ed with bright, uncomplicated happiness. His gentle smile gives the moment room to breathe. She throws up her arms, celebrating an idea Ed is still weighing. They share another quiet moment beside the fire. His gaze lifts when something moves outside. A mysterious figure stands on the roof in the rain. The two react as the shelter suddenly feels unsafe. The girl watches the darkness with widening concern. The red magic circles fill a hallway beyond the woods. A focused face prepares for whatever the circles will release. The shelter holds Ed and the girl as they return to the fire. He looks thoughtful, measuring the danger beyond the walls. She covers her mouth, delighted by a sudden thought. His eye narrows as he analyzes her reaction. She rises with a clenched fist and a new decision. Then, she runs from the campfire without looking back. He exhales, letting the silence return. The rain keeps falling over the dark woods. In the shelter, Ed studies the night alone. A distant building reminds him that his execution is lacking. He trains on his hands, turning criticism into effort. His feet hold the strain of the exercise. His sweat gathers as concentration replaces every distraction. A hooded figure runs through the rain on a mission. The sharp eyes appear beneath the hood. A maid waits in a doorway, questioning the visitor. The other maids gather as their chief gives instructions. The hooded figure walks with a maid through the dim hall. A metal bucket waits on the floor. The hooded visitor stands beside it, quietly waiting. The building glows faintly against the night. The students gather outside and raise their fists. Their voices rise into one charged shout. The rain cannot weaken their excitement or resolve. A hooded representative leads the rally through the storm. The students run toward a large door. The door shakes under the force of their arrival. They stare in shock when it finally gives way. The students push through the opening into the light. The representative faces the breach with fear and resolve. In the rain, Ed calmly reads the chaos. A small figure falls as his fist tightens. He reaches out to steady the hooded student. A trembling hand exposes the fear behind the movement. The bespectacled student looks up in panic. He pulls him away through the grand interior. His composure steadies the shaken student beside him. A maid runs, leaving her hat behind. The footprints lead down a deserted hall toward an ornate door. The protection runes activate and change the corridor's danger. The orange seals cover the walls as confusion turns to desperate hope. He raises his hand and works against the glowing defenses. His face hardens with the concentration the crisis demands. Rain announces the footsteps of someone approaching through the ruined night. Ed looks down from the red-lit hall as Lucy enters beneath the shadow. Another shoe meets the wet floor, making the arrival feel deliberate. Ed stands in the dim room while Lucy waits behind him. His profile tightens as the conversation reaches its real subject. The same serious gaze refuses to retreat from what he must say. Lucy answers with laughter that sounds warmer than the room deserves. The darkness opens a memory neither of them can keep buried. A younger Lucy runs clutching a bag while a man follows with a bat. A crying father holds a child as Lucy burns the papers nearby. A gold coin waits in the darkness like a price for survival. She walks over a mountain of coins while desperate hands reach upward. The memory closes, returning the weight of that choice to the present. Lucy faces Ed again, composed enough to hide what the past cost. Her mouth moves as the explanation grows sharper. From the landing above, she looks down and keeps control of the room. Rain falls beyond the window, sealing the building inside a cold night. Ed's troubled eyes begin to glow as he prepares an ability. They stand at opposite ends of the staircase, separated by more than distance. Lucy's smile carries a warning she does not need to explain. She smiles openly now, certain that Ed is already cornered. Ed turns away, carrying the pressure in his shoulders. He sits, with his head lowered, exhausted by the bargain in front of him. Blue light gathers in his eyes as restraint starts to fail. A red magic circle opens and crackles across the dark space. Ed rises into the air inside a storm of red energy. His arms lift as though the circles are answering his will. He sits alone in the hallway while footprints mark everyone who came before. Outside, a tall building disappears into the rain. A carriage crosses the wet night with red roses in the foreground. A pink-haired girl waits alone in a gazebo, watching the storm for Ed. Her face holds quiet determination despite the empty promise of his arrival. The building looms over her vigil as the rain refuses to stop. Vertical rain turns the waiting into a test of endurance. A spectral blue wolf appears beside her and whispers through the darkness. Two women search the woods, one pale-haired and one wrapped in red. A vision of a dragon and a small spirit answers with the same denial. The rain returns, stretching the silence around the lonely gazebo. She touches her hair, finally admitting that something has gone wrong. Her eyes grow watery as patience gives way to resignation. Red roses shine in the rain while she convinces herself to hurry back. She runs through the streets beneath a hood, driven by fear and hope. 3 hooded figures stop before a large building and stare upward. Her face turns toward the entrance, and shock breaks through her courage. She and a companion look into the building with open horror. Potion bottles surround her as red light gathers in her eyes. The group runs through the corridor toward whatever caused the disturbance. She kicks the door open, choosing action before fear can stop her. Her glowing eyes fix on the danger beyond the threshold. The room is crowded with debris, footprints, and Ed sitting far away. Ed remains folded into the chair, his expression dark beneath the pressure. The newcomers stare at him, realizing the situation is worse than expected. A tear slips down her face when she understands what happened to Ed. Footprints cover the floor, proving that many students passed through first. The grand staircase rises through the building like another unanswered threat. The group faces Ed across the ruined room without knowing how to reach him. Lucy smiles with confidence, taking the lead before anyone else can move. Ed lowers his gaze while her hair frames the distance between them. A hooded girl walks toward Ed, calm despite the debris underfoot. They meet on the staircase while floating fragments make the air unstable. A loafer steps forward, turning the standoff into an immediate threat. Lucy faces the others with a predatory smile that hides her next decision. One male student watches tensely, ready to strike if Ed resists. Ed sits on the floor, exhausted but still measuring every opponent. A boot lands firmly, and the attack begins. The male student moves with a weapon while Lucy watches from behind. Blue light bursts from Ed's outstretched hand and stops the first blow. The attacker drives forward with a bright trail following his weapon. Lucy studies the exchange with narrowed eyes. Ed stands with green light gathering in his hand. A glowing eye catches the instant the balance changes. The green blast tears through the room and strikes metal with sparks. The impact throws the male student backward. His face opens in shock when the defense fails. He is thrown through the air, no longer controlling the fight. On the ground, he looks up as red symbols fill the room. Blue energy twists into a vortex around the collapsing struggle. Lucy covers her mouth, shocked by how quickly Ed turned the battle. Green force cuts a sharp line through the girl's hair. She stares at the damage, overwhelmed by the narrow escape. The potions scatter beneath her as disbelief replaces confidence. Fear and confusion take over her face. She looks into the dark room, searching for the next danger. Her eye reflects the distress she can no longer hide. She kneels beside a potion bottle, trying to find one answer. A red-uniformed girl crouches as magical fire erupts around her. She remains low, while a silent figure stands untouched inside the flames. Her focus hardens as the figure calmly speaks through the fire. The dark figure remains in control while the fire closes around them. A bloodied young man stands with blue eyes burning through the smoke. Fire fills the room, while a girl in red crouches beneath its heat. She clutches her arm, pain competing with the flames around her. Potions, crystals, and tools wait nearby like a final inventory of chances. Her face lifts as she chooses to fight instead of panic. A male silhouette watches from the fire, calm inside the destruction. Green light spreads into a barrier between the girl and the flames. Shock widens her eyes as she reaches toward the sudden defense. Her gaze hardens, turning fear into the will to survive. A blonde man with an eye patch controls green energy from the blaze. The girl pulls a small blue orb from her pocket. A winged white creature appears before her inside a magic circle. The circle expands, promising a spell large enough for the burning room. She pushes against a dark beast while fire closes around them. A brown-haired girl reaches out from beneath her red cape. She turns toward a distant light, searching for a way through the smoke. A white flash tears across the room and drowns every shape. The light holds, sustaining the attack while the fire keeps spreading. The girl braces inside a green aura, shocked by the force she unleashed. Another flash erases the battlefield for one breath. She leaps as a red-clad swordsman swings a glowing blade. Her breath comes hard, revealing how close exhaustion has become. She runs while the red swordsman cuts after her. His face changes when the next turn surprises him. She reaches forward, gathering focus for a desperate answer. A huge beast charges from the fire toward the fighters. The red-clad man steadies himself and prepares to meet it. The girl is thrown backward, her cape unable to slow the fall. She flies through the burning air as the battle tears the room apart. The beast continues its attack while she struggles to recover. Dark clothing cuts through the orange fire, hiding the next movement. A cape billows through the embers as someone changes position. The red-jacketed girl kneels with a potion and a sharp grin. A light-haired man gathers green energy, ready to block the beast. His hand reaches toward the barrier while the girl watches from the shadows. The rabbit-like creature charges through the green field toward him. She closes her eyes around another potion, preparing the timing. She leaps and throws the glowing bottle into the fight. The bottle flies with a message that someone is late. It shatters on impact and releases its stored magic. Blue energy explodes across the room and swallows the fire. The girl watches the blast with surprise and open awe. Motion and flame blur together in the explosion's aftermath. A shadowy creature breaks apart under the blue force. The rabbit beast staggers, wounded and bleeding through the smoke. It collapses while the exhausted man remains standing nearby. The two fighters stare at each other through the blue light. The man runs past the defeated beast toward the next threat. His face shows the cost of the battle as his hand reaches ahead. He leaps over the wreckage without slowing. Fire follows his movement while the next strike gathers force. He plants his feet with the sword raised toward the remaining danger. His hand tightens around the glowing hilt. The sword sweeps forward and pushes the fire aside. The red-jacketed girl watches with fear and stubborn resolve. A dark room waits beyond the battle, its window showing the night. A table with books and a plant sits untouched by the chaos. The swordsman drives forward again, refusing to let the fire stop him. Blood covers his back, but the weapon stays ready. The girl's scream cuts through the room when the danger changes. A dark-haired fighter pulls a bowstring tight amid the flames. A red-uniformed swordsman charges a figure in a light shirt. His face carries the certainty of someone who believes force will win. An eye opens wide as the attack becomes impossible to ignore. A glowing sword releases an energy arc toward the group. The arc strikes the ground beside the red jacket and the white dress. The girl in white reaches out, trying to raise a barrier. Blue electricity gathers around a pair of hands. A magical tool pulls an arrow through the air toward its target. Hands hold the sparking device that guides the shot. The red-jacketed girl kneels and focuses the device's power. A display names the tool Claw Hand and explains its reach. A surprised eye catches the arrow's impossible path. The girl looks up with a pouch in her hand. She shouts when the new danger reaches the others. The red swordsman clashes with another weapon in a burst of sparks. A calm face watches the violence without losing focus. Someone in red clutches their head as fire overwhelms them. A bloodied face closes its eyes beneath the strain. Another force blasts a fighter backward through the burning hall. A worried girl watches the collapse spread around her. Furniture lies overturned while flames consume the room. A red-clad fighter grabs another by the collar and demands an answer. The red-jacketed girl folds her arms, angry at the entire disaster. A figure sits in darkness, studying the fight with cold intensity. A green orb glows in the figure's hand. A shocked, injured face appears with blue eyes burning through the smoke. The wounded body falls backward as the room loses control. The protagonist freezes between two startled female students. A Gothic clock tower rises outside beneath the storm. Blood marks a battered face whose blue eyes refuse to dim. The three companions gather in a corridor, ready to intervene. A red-uniformed girl shouts at the bloodied swordsman. His eyes glow blue, revealing a power no one can dismiss. Another girl's eyes burn orange as anger becomes something dangerous. A doorway opens and spills blue light into a hidden room. Braided hair and a flower accessory conceal the girl's expression. A shoe steps onto patterned carpet, announcing the next arrival. The companions gather around the bloodied swordsman to keep him standing. His face turns toward someone unseen, confused by the revelation. The final darkness gives way to a girl whose eyes glow red. A hurried note asks someone to wait because an unexpected problem delayed the sender, leaving the promise hanging in the rain. He prepares in classrooms and forests, refusing to let his bloodied clothes become an excuse. He stands behind the braided-haired girl with a tired smile and blood on his shirt. The tone darkens, as if the calm is only borrowed time. He is seized by the collar and pushed against a wall by someone unseen. The girl holds a mug and offers a soft smile that hides too much. Rain surrounds her as a strange letter, and Ed's blood reveal a hidden motive. Red light floods her eyes while a dark aura tears through her restraint. A clenched hand crackles with power as she demands to know what is happening. A young man in red pulls Ed away before the force can consume him. The braided-haired girl stands inside an explosion as fire and water beasts appear, turning her grief into a battlefield no one can escape. Her knowing smile frightens the red-clad girl holding a potion nearby. White feathers drift when the window breaks above the battlefield. Glass and feathers scatter through the room as the magical clash intensifies. A spectral bird passes over a stone creature made of fire. The braided-haired girl becomes the center of a vortex that drives the beasts forward. Her red eyes sharpen, exposing the source of the attack. A frightened eye watches the destruction grow beyond control. His companions form a defense while searching for a way through. Dark purple energy twists beneath a hand that seems to command it. The girl unleashes another wave, sending every beast and spell toward them. The attacks collide and fill the battlefield with blinding light, erasing the difference between defense and destruction. Someone reacts in the shadow of the blast, caught between fear and action. Dark ink swallows the impact before the next exchange begins. Ed raises a sword wrapped in flame and chooses to counterattack. The fire creature lunges as he steps into its path. A hand grips red fabric, showing how close the struggle has become. Ed is grabbed by the collar, shocked as the battlefield shifts again. A beam cuts through the fire creature and meets its attack head-on. Debris falls after the clash while everyone stares at the fading energy. Ed reaches toward a crying girl, his torn clothes proving what the fight cost. His face shows exhaustion, blood, and the stubborn refusal to surrender. He lies flat on the ground while the girl watches him among the dying fires. A clock tower rises through the rainy night after the battle. The rain carries a quiet explanation that the chaos had a necessary purpose. Ed sits against a wall while the girl stands over him in the blue light. He speaks with a tired determination that the fight has not removed. Standing becomes difficult, and the girl watches without revealing what she feels. Ed bends over in pain as the battle settles into his body. A blue glow remains in his eye, hinting that the danger is not finished. A carriage waits in the rain while hooded figures gather around it. Several ornate rings rest on a hand belonging to someone powerful. A sharp-faced aristocrat with yellow eyes looks down with cold authority. The carriage and its guards wait beneath the storm like an approaching verdict. The building stands behind them, enormous and dark against the rain. A silhouette watches from a window while the storm keeps everyone apart. A hand presses against the glass, reaching toward the person beyond it. A red-haired woman stands by the window while a maid watches her closely. Lortel looks toward the maid, concerned by what the reflection suggests. She walks down the staircase carrying the loneliness of the room with her. Ed confronts Lortel directly, refusing to excuse the consequences of her choices. Her eye fills with emotion when his words finally reach their target. A text recalls Elris as the long-serving head maid of Ophelis Hall. Elris stands before the building with other maids, unmistakably in command. A chest of gold turns the conversation from duty toward corruption. Lortel looks over her shoulder, caught between calculation and regret. Elris studies the gold without showing whether it tempts her. Coins rain over desperate people, making greed look like a kind of hunger. A young red-haired figure runs through a corridor while a man with a club gives chase. A sharp eye observes the chase with cold authority from somewhere unseen. The red-haired figure reaches a bright window and smiles as if she has found an answer. Her knowing smirk turns the calm into another form of danger. She walks down a red-carpeted hall with the tall maid close behind. The maid's mouth forms a polite smile that feels far more threatening. A hand grips a sword hilt as a voice addresses Lortel. Lortel turns toward the blade, shocked by how quickly the threat became real. The maid stands over her with a glowing sword, leaving no room left to negotiate. Rain presses against Ophelis Hall as its tower rises over the night. Inside, a red-uniformed student is pinned beneath a weapon. A wounded maid sits in the corridor while red seals hold the threat. Students rush up the grand staircase with one injured companion. Blue eyes burn through the flames as a fighter faces the danger. A frightened student grips tightly as the group approaches. Willain holds the cube as magic throws people back. The cube pulses with defensive power. A fighter cuts through the barrage while red light fills the room. A sharp projectile slices toward the students. Ed deflects the attack as his companions fight beside him. Windows glow, revealing the battle's scale. One student stumbles while another shouts in panic at the next attack. Glass bursts outward as the force of magic reaches the windows. The fighters leap through explosions and debris to keep moving. Blasts tear along the building, shaking the battlefield. A massive explosion consumes part of the hall. Ed and his companion look toward the incoming attack, shocked. A green angler weed reagent waits as their countermeasure. The reagent erupts into green energy and gives them an opening. The student channels the burst with concentration. Ed and his companion close the boss in a pincer attack. Willain looks overwhelmed as his defensive magic begins to fail. The attacks meet in a flash that erases everything. Willain's glasses crack as panic replaces his confidence. His eye reflects the light of the attack he can no longer stop. The building catches fire as the battle reaches its final blow. A carriage arrives in the rain, carrying someone important. Ed and his companion hide behind a tree as blood runs from his forehead. His breathing grows heavy, but he watches the carriage. Cloaked figures gather around the lights, turning the arrival threatening. The carriage door opens and reveals the person who ordered this meeting. A ringed, goateed man studies a document inside the carriage. He burns the paper, destroying evidence before anyone can read it. A maid stands in the rain with an umbrella, watching Ed and his companion. Ed's eyes widen when he recognizes how dangerous the situation has become. The maid faces them with two cloaked figures behind her. Darkness interrupts the scene as the next confrontation gathers force. The maid raises her sword inside a fiery aura. Blue energy surrounds the blade as she confronts someone below her. Ed's companion curls on the ground, overwhelmed by the maid's presence. Another dark transition separates the threat from Ed's next decision. Ed studies the rain, injured but unwilling to surrender. The ringed man walks forward with his guards and maid. Ed and his companion stay hidden while the group approaches. Ed closes his eyes, gathering the last calm he can find. When he opens them, a decision has replaced the exhaustion. His companion looks over, understanding what he intends. Burning paper carries the remains of the plan. A red-haired woman shakes hands with a turbaned man in secret. The ringed man walks down the hallway with followers. His face is cold and certain that the building belongs to him. The red-haired woman holds a sword, her attention sharp. An observing eye measures the next movement from the shadows. The maid stands over her opponent with blue power around the blade. Rain falls across the darkness while both sides wait for the strike. A sword blade catches the light and announces the fight. The maid looms over the red-haired woman, forcing her onto the defensive. She leads the woman through a red-carpeted hallway by the rope. The maid closes her eyes, calm even as the next attack forms. An explosion tears through the hallway and catches the red-haired woman. A glasses-wearing captive lies tied up, dazed by the violence. The red-haired group forms a defense around the captive. The maid strikes again, her sword carrying the force of the encounter. The group gathers around someone who has fallen. A slight smile at the edge of a mouth makes the enemy feel even closer. The red-haired woman looks up in shock. A shadowed smile answers her fear with quiet menace. She runs through the hallway, choosing escape before the trap closes. Footsteps pound across the dark floor as the chase follows. She races down the staircase with the enemy still behind her. Her back disappears into darkness, while the building offers no safety. Measured footsteps begin after hers, slow enough to feel intentional. The same steps continue through the silence, promising pursuit. A focused face prepares for the next act of violence. The maid waits in the dark, coldly observing the path ahead. The red-haired woman reaches toward a distant light. She covers her mouth while tears break through her control. Footsteps return, closer now and impossible to ignore. The pursuit continues with measured rhythm. She turns and fights with the last of her strength. Rain hangs outside the building while the struggle continues within. A shattered chandelier lies on the floor, proof of the damage. The ringed man walks through the hallway with followers. His cold face gives nothing away as he approaches the wounded youth. A figure stands in the dark, forced to watch the powerful group arrive. The ringed man confronts the bloodied youth and dismisses him. The youth's bruised face holds grim resolve while red eyes burn behind him. The man with the gem studies the room coldly. A pale-haired woman weighs the red-haired girl against the blue-clad man. She raises a glowing sword over the red-haired girl as power gathers. Students form a defense around their tied companion and prepare to resist. The sword student clashes with the pale-haired woman as fire erupts. The group fights as the red-haired girl moves through the chaos. A sudden blur separates the battle from the words that follow. The ringed man watches with stern interest, untouched by the panic. The wounded youth speaks through a cut mouth, refusing to look away. He stands before the man and his followers, weighing his next choice. The eye-patched man turns slightly, the red gem glowing beneath his coat. His mouth forms the next threat in the dark corridor. The wounded youth looks up, shocked by what the words reveal. The man looms over him inside a blue aura, making the difference absolute. A violent impact tears through the wall and fills the room with debris. A golden figure stands in the breach while Ed and Janica stare. His bloodied face studies the stranger. The muscular man performs a handstand. He rises calmly, barely affected by the destruction around him. The man addresses Ed and Janica beneath the golden light. He tells Janica that punishment has already answered for what she did. She turns red and waves her hands in embarrassed denial. Her flustered face contrasts with Ed's completely unimpressed stare. He asks the skeptical question no one else wants to voice. The muscular man bows deeply, changing the mood without warning. He looks up and speaks with sudden formal calm. His eyes fill with blue light as suspicion takes over. The hooded figures appear around the man and make the room feel smaller. A serious mouth delivers the next part of the threat. He answers with a sharp gaze despite his injuries. The muscular man looks menacing, yellow eyes fixed on Ed. He leans close enough to make the danger personal. One glowing eye studies Ed like a problem to solve. His face disappears partly into shadow, but his resolve holds. The man's mouth prepares another statement that could change the balance. He stands battered and refuses to give ground. The hooded figures move together, weapons glowing blue. His eyes widen as the attack finally begins. He dodges the first strike with a sudden movement. The two attackers close around him and force the fight into the room. The green energy surges as Ed blocks their advance. She and another companion watch while the magic tears across the hall. He shouts and keeps fighting through the pressure. A fiery construct rises before Ed and his companion like a successful answer. Her amber eyes appear, sharp enough to turn the summoned power into a threat. The hooded figures surround Ed as a vortex of fire fills the hall. He sprints through a blue corridor to reach a better position. His eye reflects pain and the blue light closing around him. He stands bloodied while the red-haired girl watches from behind. Her face turns toward him, shocked by how much blood he has lost. They move through the dark space together as he looks back. An older man greets them warmly from a library or study. A bearded man in an apron laughs nearby. A small green bird perches on a finger among the books. They run through the corridor before the danger catches them. She turns into shadow, carrying the weight of what she knows. A pink-haired girl arrives with eggs and unexpected cheer. They sit before a campfire, letting the warmth interrupt the crisis. A pale-haired maid stands serenely with her eyes closed. The maid raises an ethereal sword over the red-haired girl. Footsteps approach with quiet, deliberate steps. The red-haired girl appears through cracked glass, distressed. Several figures gather in a blue aura as the conflict forms an alliance. The maids and Willain join forces while Ed looks ready to act. The red-haired girl stands in a corridor while Ed watches from below. Her face tightens as she tries to speak through the impossible choice. A faint blue glow gathers in her eye. A hand grips another wrist in a desperate attempt to keep someone from falling. She reaches out as Ed catches her in a burst of pale light. Her face softens when she looks up at him. Her mouth forms a quiet, intimate confession. Several armored figures discuss a strategy built on changing prices. The red-haired girl explains how debt sent her after a sealed grimoire. A diagram shows armor and money moving through 3 connected parties. An arrow rises beside the armor, promising a change in value. The words demand an immediate purchase before the plan collapses. Silhouettes stand over wealth that seems to multiply beneath them. The 3 partners smile like conspirators who have already agreed. A goateed man with a red gem watches the plan with cold authority. The red-haired girl leads 2 turbaned men through the scheme. She pulls the bloodied Ed through a blue corridor at a desperate pace. Her face shines with sweat as control finally starts to fail. He looks down in pain, blood covering his profile and neck. They face each other in the dark, both understanding how close the end is. A blue bird waits inside a golden cage with a message on its back. The red-haired girl watches Ed lean against a wall, still refusing to stop. His back is covered in blood as he braces himself against the room. His eye remains focused despite the exhaustion burning through him. The hooded figures wait outside while someone explains the need to stay hidden. A carriage crosses a bridge in the rain with the strategy still unfolding. They look out from a narrow, dark space. She looks toward Ed while his back carries the damage of the escape. His eye shows pain, but his attention stays on her. His bloody hand grips her shoulder to keep her close. He stands over her when she falls, checking whether she can still move. Her eye glows green as another power rises beneath the fear. He looks up, shocked by the force he feels from her. Her mouth speaks softly while the danger waits around them. She looks up with a vulnerable expression that strips away the strategy. He stares back, bloodied and unable to hide his surprise. He closes his eyes, exhausted by the answer she has given him. The red-haired girl stands in a doorway and looks toward someone hidden in blue light. She sits in the dim room, head bowed beneath the weight of the decision. The rain fills the arched window and isolates her from the outside. She remains seated, somber, and unable to escape her thoughts. Her breathing grows heavy as emotion becomes physical strain. A battle erupts around her as red uniforms clash with hooded figures. The hall fills with fire while the red-haired girl watches. A hand clutches a chest, marking the instant pain becomes realization. Her tears run down her face as the plan breaks her composure. A sword blade flashes through the chaos, making the threat immediate. A pale-haired maid raises her sword and prepares to defend the next step. An injured neck and jaw reveal how much violence has already passed. The rain returns as the confrontation refuses to end. He stands in the rain with blue eyes glowing, ready for the final confrontation. A glowing green cube activates in a hand as the hidden mechanism wakes. In the rain, a maid with a sword clashes with a relentless male fighter. Her cold face stays focused while the storm turns every movement dangerous. A sword strike flashes, then darkness absorbs the impact. The male fighter lunges again before the rain can settle. Their blades lock inches apart, each refusing to yield. Sparks scatter from the crossing swords. The weapons remain trapped together as the tension tightens. The maid stands ready in the rain, eyes glowing faintly. The male fighter faces her with the same brutal focus. Blood marks his forehead, but his attention never breaks. Purple energy bursts and changes the rhythm of the duel. The maid moves with impossible speed and cuts through the rain. Her sweeping blade forces the male fighter to twist away. He dodges the strike with precise, practiced movement. Sweat gathers on her face as the assault begins to cost her. His foot plants firmly, preparing the counterattack. The maid reaches for a hidden weapon strapped to her leg. Her hands prepare the skill or item that could turn the fight. The clash forces her backward across the wet ground. Surprise crosses her face when the opponent resists. A purple eye opens, revealing a special ability. The system explains ability sharing and its daily limit between twins. Multiple purple blades appear around the male fighter. He stands surrounded by the summoned weapons, ready but shocked. The blades strike together and trap him in the assault. The maid's eyes glow with the same purple power controlling them. Her expression changes when the outcome refuses to follow her plan. Blue light fills the male fighter's eyes as he survives the attack. A blood-stained hand grips a knife, making the fight brutally close. He stands over the fallen maid while rain and sparks surround them. Her pinned body faces the descending foot. The boot strikes the ground and throws debris across the corridor. The male fighter looks down with a cold, blood-marked expression. He roars as he forces the maid to the ground. Her eyes widen with terror and exhaustion. His face disappears into shadow while the pressure continues. The maid huddles on the ground, afraid, but not yet surrendered. A purple artifact activates in her hands as a final attempt. She rises inside the swirling energy and gathers everything she has left. Purple power explodes outward and forces him to react. His bloodied face reveals that even he feels the danger. Her eyes burn with determination as the artifact reaches its limit. A fiery explosion fills the battlefield and hides both combatants. The male fighter steps out of the fire, still standing. They face each other exhausted, neither willing to call it over. Shock replaces confidence when her attack fails to finish him. Her eye reflects the fire and the certainty of defeat. His final blow sends the maid flying backward. The duel ends, but the rain continues to fall. The silence after the duel leaves only his next move. Her bloodied mouth struggles to form a word after the impact. He pins her down again, preparing to end the fight. Despair settles across her face when escape becomes impossible. Her eyes close as exhaustion overtakes the last resistance. Fire and debris consume the area around her position. The maid lies motionless while rain falls over the wreckage. The male fighter stands above her with the weariness of victory. Another explosion collapses the structure and seals the end of the duel. His bloody hand reaches into the darkness, searching for something unseen. The defeated maid sits slumped and unconscious beneath the aftermath. A silhouette runs through a doorway into the rain. The young man remains bloodied and focused beneath the cold blue light. A system notice reports that Shenny, the dish attendant, has been murdered. A new skill window names pain endurance and postpones exhaustion and pain. A stone crashes through the window and shatters the room's quiet. The young man kneels near the broken glass, injured but alert. His narrowed eyes measure the night beyond the window. A bookshelf and its clock sit quietly in the damaged room. Papers cover a desk where plans were interrupted. A golden cage holds a carrier bird with a message attached. A hand writes instructions with a quill. The message orders every acquired piece of gear sold. The carrier bird crosses the moonlit rain with the order. A shoe enters a puddle, where one drop of blood remains. The young man walks through the woods, clothes stiff with blood. A dark figure with yellow eyes waits beyond the trees. The transition leaves the wounded survivor alone with the approaching threat. He looks weary beneath the shadows, but his attention stays forward. A hooded figure approaches through the dark woods. Shock crosses the young man's face when the stranger comes close. The hooded figure draws a glowing blade and turns the meeting dangerous. Blue flames surround figures from the recent struggle, linking their fates. A hooded person stands in a doorway and speaks to someone hidden inside. A red-haired woman moves through the woods with a glowing blade in hand. The bloodied young man stands at his limit, shocked by her arrival. She confronts him with the blade ready while he can barely remain standing. Her hand tightens around the hilt, keeping the threat alive. His eyes widen as the weapon's light reveals her intent. She sheathes the blade, replacing menace with sudden calm. The hooded woman reaches out with cloth and begins tending his wounds. He looks down as surprise softens the fear between them. Together, they face a small, warm cabin glowing through the dark trees. She offers a gentle smile and suggests they warm themselves by the fire.